We're about 5 days out from the TikTok ban, and there's still a lot of people on this app talking about how they don't know why it's getting banned. It's because of the Israeli regime. That's why. No, that's literally why. So if you don't know why the app was banned, why Congress voted to ban it, the main reason is because of the Israeli regime. I know, Aaron Parnas is not going to tell you that, but that is the reason why. In case you did not know this, it is not because of China. Let's travel back to 2023 in a leaked call from Jonathan Greenblatt, who is the head of the ADL. ADL is the alleged Anti-Defamation League. It's more like a group of telemarketers that harass companies until they do what they want. They basically go to companies and go like, do you love Israel? That's a nice app you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. So here's the leaked call. You can hear him admitting that he's very concerned about TikTok and how they need to do something about it because the youths are just not really getting propagandized as easily as previous generations.
We have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICYMI's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Tagli, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy towards this, like fast. Because again, like we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation, and the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line with ways that like Glasgow just said.
I thought you were an anti-defamation organization. Why are you obsessed with protecting the reputation of the Israeli regime? That's not a part of your job description. Like, why do you think it's your job to protect a nation state? A nation state that ain't even your own, ho. Hope you got all that in that leaked call that came out. Then he went on MSNBC on Morning Blow so that he could talk about how dangerous TikTok is. My favorite part of this clip is hearing Mika Brzezinski, that insane fucking hack that went down to kiss the ring at Mar-a-Lago after Trump won, after calling him a fascist for years. And she's like, yes, we need to talk about TikTok. Yes, just listen, you can hear in the background.
Need to talk about TikTok. TikTok, if you will, is the 24/7 news channel of so many of our young people, and it's like Al Jazeera on steroids, amplifying and intensifying the anti-Semitism and the anti-Zion with no repercussion.
Hope you caught that conflation. Criticism of Zionism, which is an ideology, a political ideology, with anti-Semitism. Understand that's a purposeful manipulation tactic, because if he can get you to conflate a state with a people and a political ideology with immutable characteristics, well, then you can't really argue with that.
There's been a lot of lamentations about the fact that TikTok's ownership is Chinese, but you know what? Oracle owns 10% of the company. General Atlantic owns a piece of the company. Our friends at Sequoia Capital own a piece of the company. So does Sequoia and General Atlantic, does Oracle want to be responsible for spreading anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism? It's time to talk about TikTok. And I think we need members of Congress to be asking them, why are they doing it up? And let me be clear, I've met with Shou Chu, the CEO. I've talked to their leadership, but it is long past time for TikTok and its owners and its investors to step up and say, enough. We're going to take action.
He's such a Karen. He's like, I talked to the owners. I demanded to talk to the manager at TikTok. Support Israel. It's the entitlement for me. And I talked to Shou Chu, and it is a long past time. Like, who are you? And guys, remember, he's doing all of this in service of protecting a foreign government. He wants the speech of American citizens shut down in service of the reputation of a foreign government committing genocide. Want more? Here's Mitt Romney, who's a senator, admitting that's exactly why they banned it.
Where's the PR been so awful? PR been so awful. PR been so awful. I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that. Which is, I mean, typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating?
Another question to ponder. Why is a United States senator concerned about the PR of a foreign nation? And why are you more concerned about the PR for this entity than you are for Americans' freedoms? They keep talking about the national security implications with China. Why aren't we more concerned with the national security implications of the Israeli regime and the undue influence they seem to have on our country and lawmakers?
Narrative has evolved. Yeah, it's a great question.
Notice he says narrative. Not truth, not national security, narrative.
The single biggest change has been in the information environment. And when I started out in the early 1990s, everyone did the same thing. You woke up in the morning, you opened the door of your apartment, your house, you pick up a hard copy of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. And then if you had a television in your office, you turned it on at 6:30 or 7 o'clock and watched the national network news. Now, of course, we are on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I know that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
Did you hear anything about China in that conversation? That is the U.S. Secretary of State talking to a U.S. Senator who voted for that TikTok ban. And he speaks for all of Congress that voted for it as well. Did you hear anything about China or national security in that convo? No. You heard Antony Blinken say, yeah, well, back in the day, people would just have the New York Times or the nightly news, and all of our media is controlled by a small handful of corporations. So all the Americans can get propagandized by just a few corporations. That's not the case anymore. It's a lot harder now for just a few corporations to just lie to you all the time because people have other options than to watch garbage cable or follow trash bag outlets like the New York Times. But you have Mitt Romney there, literally lamenting that the PR of the Israeli regime has been so poor. He then goes on to say, it'll be of great interest to the president to sign that. People are wondering why we decided to ban TikTok, and he just says it. Yeah, but you look at what people are talking about on TikTok, and they're talking about the Palestinians. We can't have that. They all admit it. It was never about China. It was never about national security. It was always about them being upset at the idea that Americans were actually seeing what was happening in Palestine for the first time. And people were talking about it, and they were having a hard time controlling it. So they just banned it. So if anybody you know asks you, why was TikTok banned anyway? You can send them this video. Or you can just tell them it's because of the Israeli regime. Because our government cares about protecting their image, not your rights.